All right, I need you to hear me on this because this is where a lot of people waste years of their life, including myself in the past. And that is love isn't enough. Now, I know we've all been told that it is, that if you just love someone enough, it'll work out. But here's the truth that most people won't say. You can actually love someone deeply and still be miserable with them. You can love someone and still feel unheard, emotionally starved. So if you've been hanging on just because of love, then this video is for you. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe. I'm dropping videos several times a week, try to every day. So let's get into it. All right. So there was a relationship I stayed in longer than I should have, 100%. Not because it was good, because it was very toxic, but because I felt guilty for leaving. I felt trapped. I felt like it was more of a codependent relationship, and I was afraid to be alone. I didn't stay because it was good, that's for sure. But I thought walking away meant I failed. And I was afraid to be alone. I kept trying to fix it. I kept telling myself, maybe if I just show up more, maybe if I'm more patient, maybe if I work on this, and this, that they'll meet me halfway and that it'll eventually work out. But that day never came. And I remember lying in my bed thinking about leaving. And even just from that, I felt relief. And that was the moment I knew I wasn't in love. I was in survival mode. And most importantly, I was scared to be alone and I felt trapped. So there was a girl that I actually was in a relationship with. The last technical girlfriend that I had was right after the Marine Corps. And we stayed together for about 2 years. We broke up constantly, always fighting, every birthday, every holiday. It was always something. But I saw the red flags in the beginning. But I was just afraid to be alone. I was starving to have someone. I wanted to have my person. I was 23, 24 years old. And I was afraid to walk away. And I remember right before our lease was up the first year, I was like, yeah, I'm going to leave, get out of here. She was bipolar, narcissist, unfortunately, just all kinds of stuff. And it was wild, man. Of course, I had my own issues. We all have some kind of personal responsibility in the situation to an extent, right? We always do. You have to take a personal accountability. But the point is I kept staying. Just hoping things would get better, hoping that things would change and improve. And we tried to work on things and we lived together and we broke up more times than I can count. And it was so toxic, man. But sometimes the clear sign isn't tears or fights. It's that quiet feeling of peace when you imagine walking away. Love isn't enough. You need effort. You need consistency. You need trust. You need respect, mutual emotional safety. And we make up these stories in our mind because we have this fantasy of this person who we think that they are. And a lot of times we try to fix people to fit into a mold that we feel like that they should be in and that eventually it'll work out. But the truth is, if you're the only one that's doing the work, it's not love, it's self-sacrifice. And if you feel relief just at the idea of leaving, pay attention. That's not coldness, that's your nervous system exhaling after being tense for too long. Thinking about leaving constantly, that's not just a rough patch. That's your intuition trying to get through all the noise and second guessing. Okay? No one should live in that kind of mental fog. No one should live in that kind of prison. And you hold yourself in a prison when you stay in something that you know that you believe is no longer serving you. And your pain tolerance can become your prison. Not just because you can endure, emotional neglect doesn't mean that you should just because you can put up with it, right? We tend to put up with things way past their due date, and we tend to put up with things that we shouldn't put up with, right? And some of you are too loyal people, and you shouldn't be because it's with the wrong person, right? Some of you are too loyal to people who haven't earned it. I've heard countless stories of guys who actually I was talking to a friend recently, and he told me his baby mama and, the mother of his children, his ex-wife, he wanted to get back together with her because he loved her, and he really wanted to do it for, the family, for the kids, right? Great guy. And she actually had cheated on him, and he said that I would be willing to, put that aside. And she agreed to, kind of, but she was already checked out, man. The point is that, we sometimes try and force things to try to work because you're such a good person that you're willing to do that. But these people aren't ready for that. They're not ready to receive that. They're not deserving of it. Doesn't mean they're all inherently bad people, but they're just not further along in their personal development to be able to appreciate that. And sometimes we just have to walk away. And one of the hardest lessons in life is being able to let go, whether it's love, loss, or betrayal. We fight to hold on, and we fight to let go, especially people that we love, and we tend to make more excuses than we should for these types of people. And I know that the unknown feels scarier than it really is. Like, what does that mean, right? Like leaving and going and being single and detaching yourself from the relationship, even though it's toxic and it's not good for you. Your friends and your family tell you, and all the red flags are there, your intuition screaming at you. And we know that we shouldn't stay in it. And most people stay stuck because they're more afraid of starting over than they are of staying unhappy. You don't stay because it's right. You stay because it's familiar. And that's what a lot of people do, and that's what I did for a while. I was afraid to remove myself from the situation and start over with someone else, but miserable for 2 years. And I ended up being single and moving out of state, starting over completely, But abuse of any kind is your line, whether it's verbal, emotional, physical, psychological, crosses into abuse, right? It's not your job to stay and fix it. It's not your job to stay and fix that person. You're no white knight for anyone. You leave. You protect your peace. No apologies. If you're staying because you feel guilty, because you feel obligated to, no matter if you have kids or not, if you're staying because you feel ashamed, it'll rot you from the inside out. And that kind of love turns into quiet resentment. And I always talk about this, but resentment, what happens is if it's unaddressed and we bury it, it builds up, right? It builds up like plaque, right? What happens if you don't brush your teeth or floss for so long? Builds up like plaque. I remember there was a period of time for about 1.5 years, I didn't floss at all. Went to the dentist, and I had to spend so much money because I didn't really have good dental insurance at the time, and try to fix my mouth, fix my teeth. Never doing that again, right? If it goes unaddressed for a long period of time, it builds up like a plaque, right? And what happens is that resentment will bleed into everything else in your life, your health, your purpose, your confidence. You can't save something that only you are fighting for. I understand that sometimes things take work, but no relationship is perfect, right? But a lot of times we, are not able to zoom out once you're caught in it and see the full picture. And we tend to, make excuses for people. We tend to justify things because maybe you're dealing with someone like a narcissist. That's a whole other story. But the thing is if that person won't take accountability, if they dismiss your needs or they gaslight you, that's not someone that you can build a future with. Right? That's someone you're slowly losing yourself with. And I remember this girl that I stayed with for 2 years. I didn't even hardly know who I was. I had to reinvent myself after the relationship, and it took at least a few years. Endurance is not a virtue if it's costing your well-being. You weren't born to be in emotional survival mode. You're not a martyr. You're a human being. Letting go is not a bad thing. a lot of times we have to let go. Letting go is not failure. It's self-respect, right? And people will guilt you for walking away. They will guilt you, and I felt trapped in the past before, but they're not the ones who have to live inside your heart at night. Ask yourself the real question right now. Are enough of my needs being met to justify the ones that aren't? Because every relationship requires grace, right? I understand that. But not every relationship is meant to last, and we have to know when it's time to walk away. Talk to people who love you, the ones who aren't afraid to tell you the truth. Sometimes saying it out loud is all it takes to get that clarity. If you already know it's over, you don't need more signs. You just need to trust yourself enough to follow through and be the bigger person. Now, if there's still a mutual willingness to grow, then that's hope. Okay? But it has to be both people, right? They have to be willing to meet you in the middle. It cannot be more one-sided than the other. And not just one person dragging the other person across the finish line, reluctantly. Like, that's not what you want. You deserve to be met, not tolerated, not fixed, not explained away, met. And your heart was not made to be an emotional punching bag. And your love is not a gift you just give away to people who don't protect it. You're not too sensitive. You're just finally sensitive to what your soul has been starving for, right? And you don't need to apologize for, outgrowing what no longer aligns with you, because a lot of times we outgrow people in life, and certain people serve, a certain role. They teach us lessons. There's always valuable takeaways from every relationship that we have in our life, friendship, romantic partnership. There's always takeaways. There's always growth, right? And, sometimes that season of that relationship is over. Just like in life, we have seasons, right? And we have to understand when it's time to move on. So, if this hit home for you, I want you to like the video, comment down below. Let me know which part hit home for you. Tell me your story. I try to read all the comments because it really helps me to make better content for you guys. And let me know your thoughts, man. Subscribe if you're not already. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow. See ya.